Budapest, October 1956. The people of Hungary rise against the communist regime that has ruled for 10 years. With the help of Hungarian soldiers, the people fight off communist secret police and Russian occupation troops. Hungary breaks loose from the Soviet Empire in Central Europe. The People's Revolt raises the banner of national independence. Hungary wants freedom. Russians go home, read the signs on buildings and barricades in Budapest. Russians go home. Imre Nagy, a Hungarian communist leader in disfavor because of national deviationism, is swept into power by the People's Revolt. He appeals to the Russians to withdraw from Hungary. How will the Russians react to this appeal? How will they take the success of the people's uprising? Will they respect Hungary's newly proclaimed neutrality? Hopes rise as the Russians announce that they are willing to negotiate an orderly withdrawal. Hungary's General Pál Maléter, hero of the defense of Budapest, is sent as an emissary of the Nagy government. But in the midst of the negotiations, he is treacherously seized by Russian security troops. A few hours later, on November 4th, 1956, the Russian army launches a massive assault on Budapest. All resistance is crushed. It is a low act of treachery. The pledge to negotiate was a cunning device to disarm the Hungarian nation. Imre Nagy, an ardent communist all his life, has been betrayed by the Soviet Union. He makes a radio appeal to the United Nations. Here are his actual words in Hungarian.
Támadást indítottak fővárosunk ellen, azzal a nyilvánvaló szándékkal, hogy megdöntsék a törvényes magyar demokratikus kormányt. Csapataink harcban állnak. A kormány a helyén van. Ezt közlöm az ország népével és a világ közvéleményével.
It is too late for Hungary to fight back. Too late for the United Nations to answer the call for help. His cause lost, Imre Nagy, with several aides, seeks refuge in the Yugoslav embassy. Days later, the Yugoslav government receives written assurance that Imre Nagy will not be molested if he leaves the embassy. Imre Nagy believes the Soviet pledge. He leaves the Yugoslav embassy, and he is immediately seized by Russian security troops and in great secrecy abducted to communist Romania. For a year and a half, nothing is heard of either Imre Nagy or General Maléter. In June 1958, news media of the free world relay the shocking announcement from Moscow that Imre Nagy, General Maléter, and two companions have been put to death after a secret trial. Hungarian refugees expressed their indignation and sorrow in front of Soviet diplomatic headquarters in New York. The indignation is widespread, worldwide. The Hindustan Times calls it political assassination. At his weekly press conference, President Eisenhower speaks for the American people who are appalled at the Soviets' duplicity.
I cannot think of any incident that could have and has more shocked the civilized world. These two men were not guilty of evildoing. They were fighting for their own country to eliminate or to reduce the domination by force of their country on the part of the Soviets.
In Bonn, Germany, Hungarian refugees and their children solemnly parade portraits of Imre Nagy. Who was this man, Imre Nagy? At the close of World War II, Imre Nagy was one of the communist officials brought back to Hungary by the advancing Russian army. Matthias Rákosi and other hard Stalinists dominated the post-war regime in which Imre Nagy was Minister of Agriculture, later Minister of the Interior. Eventually, Nagy became a critic of the ruling communists. He accused them of exploiting the workers. He accused the party bosses of favoritism and profiteering. He assailed the ruthless suppression of human rights. Imre Nagy accused the ruling communists of oppressing the farmers, of reducing them to destitution and servitude. Stalin, who had ruled the communist world for over 25 years, died in 1953. He was identified with these oppressive policies. Imre Nagy, a good conformist and communist that he was, paid homage to the master. But because Nagy held that it was better politics for the Communist Party to be somewhat more generous with the people, he was the least hated of the communist leaders. Following the death of Stalin in 1953, people rioted in communist East Berlin, East Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Hungary. In July 1953, Imre Nagy was appointed Prime Minister of Hungary. He was appointed by the Communist Party because it was thought that he might stem the tide of unpopularity, threatening the very existence of the regime. Imre Nagy felt flattered that the party should have called on him. He announced a government program hopefully called the New Course. Imre Nagy believed that communism could redeem itself, that there was still time. He did not know that the party was merely using him to weather the storm of popular hostility. From July 1953 to April 1955, Imre Nagy was premier. Under his leadership, there was an increase in the production of consumer articles. After years of austerity, this was a welcome development, and it made Imre Nagy a rather popular figure. At last, people felt that industry was producing for the people's needs, as well as for the interests of the state. Concentration camps were abolished and many political prisoners released. This, too, increased the popularity of Imre Nagy among the people. The Communist Party considered this relaxation of police control a temporary expedient, useful in allaying the people's discontent. The premiership of Imre Nagy was closely tied to the struggle for power among Stalin's successors in the Kremlin. There was Zhukov and Malenkov and Molotov. Malenkov, too, was an advocate of greater consumer production, and Zhukov, too, talked of relaxation of international tensions. They and their allies were eventually outmaneuvered for the leadership, just as in 1955 Imre Nagy was ousted from the premiership in Hungary. In October 1956, Hungary's workers and students in revolt were at first moderate in their demands. They demanded the end of secret police methods, free elections, and the return of Imre Nagy. When fired upon by the secret police and Russian troops, then they went further. They revolted against communism itself. They recognized that communism could never serve the people. It was as alien, ruthless, and dictatorial as Nazism was. In this great moment of truth, Imre Nagy chose to side with his people. A lifelong communist, he, like thousands of his countrymen, became a fighter against Soviet imperialism. General Palmer later, together with Imre Nagy, fell victim to Soviet treachery. At the United Nations, the General Assembly's Special Committee on Hungary, with members from Ceylon, Tunisia, Uruguay, Denmark, and Australia, spoke through its acting chairman, Ronald Walker of Australia.
The committee deplores this latest tragic event in which these men, symbols of the hope of a nation for freedom from foreign domination, were secretly sent to death in circumstances which call for full exposure, in violation of solemn undertakings that their persons would not be harmed, and in defiance of the judgment and opinion of the United Nations. It expresses its grave concern lest the end of this repression and killing may not yet be in sight.